Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're currently sitting right now. My name is Aaron. I am one of the dedicated customer success managers here at SeekOut, and I'm going to be leading today's webinar that's going to be focused on sourcing technical talent within SeekOut. Now, a quick overview of SeekOut for some folks that may be new to SeekOut or haven't kind of had that much exposure to it. You know, big question, what is SeekOut? If I'm describing SeekOut to my friends or family, I like to let everybody know it is a search engine. Now, that is a little bit of a disservice to SeekOut because what I think makes it so special is that SeekOut is an AI-powered search engine that is really built to help you find diverse and passive talent from underrepresented groups. So what we've done is we have aggregated a ton of fantastic data here from places like LinkedIn, GitHub, and Stack Overflow to build out really rich profiles for every candidate that we've indexed. And the way you might use similar tools like LinkedIn Recruiter to find your talent, you'll still use SeekOut to find that talent, but we're pulling in data from more websites than just LinkedIn, GitHub, and Stack Overflow. We're also pulling in things like contact information in the form of personal emails and personal mobile phone numbers. And in a little bit, I'll touch on how we utilize some pre-created filters for things like inferred diversity, which is a huge focus right now. And one of our primary focuses behind that is really ease of access. Now, depending on the country or region that you're sourcing for, really at the click of a button, you're going to be able to identify female candidates, Black or African American candidates, Hispanic, Asian American or veteran candidates. And on a global scale, those filters are going to permeate throughout where relevant. And we're going to walk through some of the different ways that you can use SeekOut to create some really great search queries, share some of those talent insights, get some really great contact information, and so forth. Now we'll go ahead and kick things off just as a quick recap of the dashboard view here. Now, as most of you have probably seen, when you first log into SeekOut, it's bringing you right here into this dashboard tab. This is really meant to give you a quick refresher of where you last left off since the last time you logged in. So over here on the left, you're going to see a couple of the recent searches you kicked off, as well as some of the recent projects you've created. Below that, you're also going to have visibility into your own sourcing activity that's going to be broken out either by week or by month. And then for anybody that does take advantage of integrating your email with SeekOut, you're also going to get visibility into some of your recent messaging campaigns right down here at the bottom. And we're pulling in some really great email statistics. So at a glance, we're able to see how many candidates are in our campaigns, how many messages have been sent, open, replied, bounced, etc. Really great info there. Now, coming a little bit back up here to the top, we have our SeekOut Support Center. Now, this has some really great articles and information, frequently asked questions from other clients and users. So just good information to reference whenever you need to. And then right above that, this is going to be important to note. This is going to show you your available contact credits and your available export credits. Now, typically the way this works is that every licensed user will get 500 contact credits and 5,000 export credits assigned to you every single month. Now, these credits do reset on a specific day of the month. That date can vary organization by organization, but it's going to tell you exactly what day your credits will reset right below. Now, it's important to note that these credits are a use it or lose it. So in my scenario here, my credits reset the 11th of each month. So as I'm getting closer to November 11th, if I still have a good amount of contact and export credits, I'm going to come in here and try to use those as much as possible because they don't roll over once we hit that reset date. So once I hit end of day on November 11th, these will reset back to 500 and 5,000. And for anybody that's not aware, we're going to walk through some examples of how you'll use each of these credits, but just wanted to make sure to call that out. Now, another thing we can do here with these credits for your organization, if they would like to, is we can pool your credits together. So instead of each individual user on your team getting 500 contact credits and 5,000 export credits, we can combine those credits together for essentially one giant bucket for everybody to share from. Now, the benefit of doing that is, let's say we're all on the same team here. If I'm doing a search, I come across some candidates that look great and I pull their contact information. Anybody else on my team is also going to have visibility into those candidates' contact information because our credits are pooled together and I already used one to pull that information out. So that is always an option that we can enable for you if your organization would like. Just let your team administrator reach out to us, let us know they want to have that enabled. And it's a very quick thing that we can do on the back end and pull everybody's credits together. Right now, no matter what page or what tab you are on here in SeekOut, you're always going to see this little blue messaging icon in the bottom right-hand corner. If you click on that, that's going to bring up our in-app chat box. So with this, you're actually able to send a direct message to anybody from our customer success team, and we are really great about responding within 5 minutes or less. Now, a lot of different use cases for this. If you are in SeekOut and you're noticing any sort of technical issues or latency, or maybe you just get that spinning wheel of death and the results aren't loading for you, definitely want to report those issues here. But I also always recommend to look at this as a resource as well. Our customer success managers here are very well versed in SeekOut, best practices, searching tips and recommendations. So let's say, for example, if you are having challenges with a particular search you're running, maybe you're not getting enough candidates returned in your search, or maybe the candidates you're looking at are just not relevant to what you're looking for. You can actually share your search URL right here into this chat box. That allows our team to click into that link, and we will be able to pull up the exact same search results the way you have them set up. And then you can let us know, hey, I'm having some challenges with this search. Can you take a look at how I have it set up and make some recommendations on how I might be able to improve my candidate return or bring in more relevant candidates? Tell me what I'm doing wrong here. That's absolutely what we're here for. So I always recommend taking full advantage of that. All right. Now I'm going to pause right there just really quickly to see if anybody has any questions before we move on. Yet. All right. Well, feel free to just kind of speak up, let those questions out if you have them. I'm going to do my best to keep my eye on the chat box, but as I got a couple of screens going here, it sometimes can be a little bit of a challenge to make sure I'm looking at the chat. So please do feel free to shout any questions out as we're going through. So from here, I'm going to go through a couple of different workflows and show you how you can search for talent here within SeekOut. And one of the big takeaways I always tell everybody in these training sessions is that you are not restricted to one way of searching for talent here in SeekOut. We are going to have a variety of different avenues to explore. Now, a really helpful way that can be beneficial to kick off a search in SeekOut is to leverage SeekOut's insights reporting data to look at the total addressable market for any position you want to be sourcing for. So when you click on this Insights tab here on the left-hand side, you're going to see a couple of different reports we can run here. And SeekOut is really capable of pulling insights data for just about anything. If there is a target company you've had a lot of success sourcing from, we can give you insights data about that particular company. We can get insights about a particular position within an organization, or we can just get some insights about a particular title in a particular city. Now, you're also going to see some additional reports right down here that have this little preview tag. These are actually in beta right now, but they are live for your team to start testing as of today. And this is something we're super excited about because now we're launching these comparison reports. Now, these are great because, for example, with the company comparison report, you can actually run a report in real time that's going to show how your organization stacks up against any number of your competitors across a wide variety of metrics. So looking at things like diversity among the workforce, tenure, education, and so forth. Previously, this is not something you could run in SeekOut. You would have to open separate tabs and just run an insights report about each individual company. Now you're able to do this all in one succinct view. So something we're super excited about. And we're encouraging everybody to try these out, test them out as much as possible, and give us your honest feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what could work better with these reports, because ultimately we're taking all that feedback back to our product and dev teams to make those enhancements and make it more of a value add for our users. So definitely try those out. Now, in this example, I'm going to use, we'll demo a quick report here for learning about a role in a city. Now, any one of these reports that you click on, it's going to bring up this new window here. And depending on where you're currently sitting, it's going to default to what region you're currently in. So I am in San Antonio, Texas. Obviously, I'm in North America. Now, the North America region here, that does include Canada as well as Mexico. But if you ever need to source outside of that region, just click on this drop-down menu and you'll see that we have you covered with EMEA, APAC, Africa, Oceania, South America, as well as Antarctica. Now, with a report like this, it's really just going to ask us for two quick data points. It's going to ask for the title of what we want to search for and a location we want to see those results in. So, for example, if I wanted to search for machine learning engineers, I can come in here and type out my title, machine learning engineer, and then let's say I want to look in the San Francisco Bay Area. Go ahead and put that as my location. So two quick data points here. I'm going to hit go, and then SeekOut is going to give me a ton of great talent mapping data about these candidates in aggregate. So right now, we're currently pulling in anybody that has some iteration of machine learning engineer in their title. And then we're also looking at folks that are all located in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, with those two data points, you're going to see right up here in that candidate index, we're indexing about 2,400 candidates that match that description. But now we also have a bird's eye view to see some really great insights data here. Now, developer insights that we're looking at here, this is something that was new and launched recently with SeekOut. So this was one of our recent product enhancements. But now this kind of gives you a bird's eye view to see what power filters these candidates are associated to. All of these are clickable links. So if we just wanted to focus in on candidates that have that site reliability expertise, hover over that, we see there's about 2,200 candidates there. You can click on that and the insights data is going to be refreshed to pull in candidates that match that power filter. We're also giving you an overview of the different programming languages these 2,400 candidates are currently well-versed in. But then as you scroll down a little bit, you're going to see some other great insights data here, things like where these folks are currently working, the different iterations of the titles that they have. We can also see what the diversity breakdown looks like amongst these candidates. And then we also have visibility into some really great data here, things like their previous employers, previous titles they've held, where the majority of their skill sets lie. We can also see things like years of experience, how long they have held that machine learning engineer title, as well as what schools they've attended, degrees they currently have, what they majored in when they were in college, as well as the industries they're in, company sizes. We can see things like languages and certifications. The point of of this talent mapping data is to really arm you to go drive those more strategic conversations as you're doing your intakes with your leadership, with your hiring managers, so you can actually show them what that total addressable market actually looks like. Now, a great thing here is you can actually share this data as well. So right up here at the top, we can either print or export. If you export, it's going to give you the option to download to your computer or view it in Excel online. And it's going to put this data into a CSV, and it's going to take all of that data and put it into these presentation ready charts and graphs. So we can copy and paste specific data points that we need. We can share the entire report with our leadership or hiring managers. Like I said, ultimately, this is for your benefit to be able to go have those more strategic conversations, to align yourselves more as strategic talent advisors to your leadership teams, and showing them what that total addressable market looks like. Now, what's great here is that all of these graphs and charts, as I mentioned, are entirely interactive, right? So we've plugged in 2 quick data points. We said, show us machine learning engineers in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now that I'm looking at this insights data, though, maybe I just want to focus on the candidates that are currently working at LinkedIn. If I hover over that graph, we see there's about 68 candidates there that match what we're looking for. But if I click on that, now my insights data is going to be refreshed to pull in those 68 candidates that are currently working at LinkedIn. And right up here at the top of the report, you're going to be able to see exactly what data points we're pulling in to give us this insights data. So we have the title machine learning engineer, we have the location of San Francisco Bay Area, but now we're also pulling in the current company of folks that are working at LinkedIn. Now you're able to jump right back and forth between the insights report right into the individual candidate profile view. So if I now just want to start parsing through these 69 candidates, all I have to do is click on the candidate index here, and now I'm going directly into these candidate profile views. So here I can click on any number of these candidates to go into their LinkedIn public accounts, look at some of their experience and expertise there, as well as get a better sense of their experience, education, and any skill sets that they have associated to what we're looking for. Now, that is one way that we can kick off a search here in SeekOut, is by leveraging those insights reports. Another great way is to just click on that search tab here on the left-hand side, and this is going to bring you right into the direct search. Now, I always look at the direct search as this is, if I know exactly what I want to look for, I'm going to start plugging away with titles and keywords and requirements. And this is kind of that go-to for that. Now, that's how I kind of picture the direct search here. Now, a couple of things I'm going to call out with the direct search that you'll see right off the bat. The first is our candidate index right up here in the top left-hand corner. So we are currently indexing 642 million candidates across the globe. We recently did a candidate refresh. So I think last week we were actually at 622 million candidate profiles. We recently added 20 million additional candidate profiles here across the globe. In addition to that, we also added some new data providers that we partner with here at SeekOut. So the data that we have available here in SeekOut today is the freshest it's ever been. Sorry, I got a little tongue tied there. So that's something we're super excited to share. Now, SeekOut does have a couple of different tiers of licensing that we offer for clients. So depending on what license your organization has opted for and assigned to you, that's going to impact what candidate pools you're going to be able to search in here within SeekOut. So if you have our premium licensing, you will have access to the public profiles candidate pool, which is what we're on right now. The backbone of this data is coming from LinkedIn public accounts. So in order to be in this talent pool or in this subset, you do have to have a publicly available LinkedIn account. Once we identify that, we try to identify some other data points that are related so that we can bring those in as well. So you'll see in some examples that we walk through, when you go to get candidates' contact information, you may also be pulling in any related social media links they have with them as well, such as their Facebook accounts, Twitter, YouTube, and so forth. And those are additional data points we're bringing in to really build out more robust Talent 360 profiles so that you have a better sense of some of the candidates that you're looking at and have in consideration for any opportunity. Now, if you have our premium tech licensing, you will not only have access to the public profiles candidate pool here, you will also have access to the GitHub talent pool as well. Now, for anybody that's not aware of GitHub, I know this is a bad analogy that I always use, but I've always looked at GitHub as almost like a Pinterest for software developers and engineers. This is a great place to find some technical talent. You're able to see what contributions they've made in GitHub, different repositories they have. And I think one of the great things about having this data aggregated here in SeekOut is we have a little over 29 million candidates here that are all unique to GitHub. Now, I know a lot of folks have leveraged Google's search engine to do X-ray searches for GitHub candidates, but for some reason, Google ran a recent update to their platform that no longer allows you to do that. So to be able to have this data aggregated at your fingertips here within SeekOut, this is going to be a really fantastic resource to find that untapped talent as it relates to software engineering and software development expertise. Now, there's a lot of similarities you're going to see whether you decide to search within the GitHub talent pool or within public profiles, but there's a few key differences we're going to make sure to call out. Now, the top tier of licensing that we offer is SeekOut's expert licensing. And that is going to give you access to not only public profiles in GitHub, but the expert candidate pool as well. Now, within expert, we are combining over 97 million profiles with over 300 million papers, publications, and over 100 million patents, as well as countless records of conference attendees, journals, and other data points that allow you to find really world-renowned experts in almost any area of expertise here. A lot of the backbone of this data is all coming from Google Scholar and Microsoft Academic, but then we're also mapping a lot of these profiles to their LinkedIn public accounts. So we're able to pull in additional data points such as where they work, where they're located, contact information, and so forth, which is not information you're going to be able to get in either Google Scholar or Microsoft Academic. So we're essentially aggregating all of that data for you in one place here in SeekOut. Right. Now we're going to jump back into the public profiles here. Oh, looks like we got a question in the chat. How many profiles are not public on LinkedIn? Said differently, how many profiles aren't we potentially seeing? Fantastic question. So we do not have the ability to filter out candidate profiles that are private or not public here within the public profiles tab. However, that is something you're able to leverage within the GitHub talent pool. Now, you're going to see a lot of the same filters here within the GitHub pool that you're going to see within public profiles, but we do have some GitHub specific filters here that you cannot leverage within the public profiles candidate pool. One of those GitHub specific filters is the coder score. Now, this is a SeekOut score that is based on a star ranking system, as you can see right here, and it's calculated based on how many contributions these candidates are actually making in GitHub. We also have a language expertise filter in here. So you are quickly, at the click of a button, able to identify candidates that are proficient with certain languages. So let's say, for example, if I only wanted to target candidates that have experience with JavaScript and Python, I can select those languages here. And then I can also take it a step further and set how proficient I want them to be with each language. So if I'm only looking for those mastery level candidates, I can adjust my slider to the 5 for both of these skill sets, and you're going to see that index start to refresh further and further as we are adding additional hard requirements here. Now, we also have a lot of these same filters you're going to see within public profiles, things like location and state. Some of the GitHub specific filters here, though, are things like the top repositories. We can filter out by how many followers they have within GitHub, as well as how many other GitHub users they are following. But one of the most beneficial filters here within the GitHub talent pool that you don't have access to within the public profiles is profile type. So with this, we're able to quickly filter out by matched profiles or unmatched GitHub profiles. Now, the match profiles, these are the GitHub candidates that we have been able to map to their LinkedIn public accounts. But we can also take that a step further and filter by the unmatched GitHub profiles. Now, these are candidates in GitHub that have not been able to be mapped to their LinkedIn public, either because the accounts do not exist or because they went ahead and marked those private. So this is more geared towards that passive talent pool. And to show you kind of what that disparity looks like, so let's just clear out our search. So we are indexing a little over 29 million candidates in total here that are all unique to GitHub. But now let's say I just want to look at the folks that do not have, or that have not been able to be mapped to public LinkedIn. I'll check that filter here. So you can see we still have a high amount of candidates that are falling into that passive talent pool that are not actively looking for their next opportunity. A little over 26 million. This is still a global candidate view, so definitely something to keep in mind. But what's great about having this data here is, I mean, as you can imagine, a lot of these candidates are probably getting inundated day after day with tons and tons of in-mails from sources and recruiters. And I have to imagine a lot of those talk tracks start to sound similar after a while. Right? They probably have recruiters and sources reaching out saying, hey, I came across your profile on LinkedIn, or I saw your resume on Career Builder or one of the job boards. And it's not really an effective way to get in touch with these candidates because they get emails like that day after day. But as you can see with some of the information that we provide in these GitHub profiles, you have a lot more visibility than some of your other competition is going to have if they're not leveraging SeekOut. So within these GitHub profiles, some of the metadata we're including here are things like how many repositories they have in GitHub, how many stars they've been given by other users, how many other GitHub users they're following, as well as how many other users are following them. But then we also have a bird's eye view to see what languages these candidates are proficient with, and then we can quickly see how proficient they are with each individual language based on that star system. But then we also have that visibility into their actual contributions, into their repositories in GitHub. All of these links go directly into that source material. So we're able to click into these to go right into their GitHub profiles to get a better sense of their body of work here as well. Now, having the visibility into this data here in SeekOut, this is going to be a massive icebreaker when you're doing that candidate outreach and can really make all the difference into whether or not these candidates are going to respond to you. As I mentioned, a lot of these folks are getting inundated by other sourcers and recruiters. A lot of them don't have this visibility, so those talk tracks sound very similar. But for example, with Victor here, having this visibility, I can now reach out to him and say, hey, Victor, I came across the contribution you had in GitHub on the homebrew cask. We actually saw that you were ranked #3 out of almost 6,000 candidates. That got our leadership team super excited. We can tell you're a very special candidate, and we would love to talk to you about an opportunity we think you'd be a good fit for. Being able to have a conversation like that with some of these passive candidates is really going to make the big difference in whether or not they may decide to respond to you. So this is definitely, like I said, fantastic data to have at your fingertips because you're able to speak to specific contributions, specific bodies of work that they have, which is not something your competition is going to be able to do if they're not already leveraging SeekOut. All right. Now I'm going to jump back into public profiles and kind of show you some different workflows and search methodologies here. Now, we have really tried to build a tool here within SeekOut that's going to meet each individual user wherever they're at in terms of their comfort level with how you like to do searches for talent. For anybody on the call that is a Boolean aficionado, our keyword box here is going to be a really fantastic resource for you. There are no character limits to how long you can make a Boolean string. And this keyword box also supports the more complex and advanced Boolean operators that you cannot use in a lot of other tools. Now, before I start plugging away with keywords and Boolean strings here, I always like to recommend that everybody check out the advanced search tips link that lives right below that keyword box. Now, this is going to give you some really great insight into some fantastic field-based operators you can use in that keyword box to add more specificity to your searches. Now, SeekOut does support all of the standard Boolean syntax, the and, the or, the not statements, parentheses, and quotations. But as you scroll through this article, you're going to see this list of field-based operators that are going to help refine your searches even further. So we can search by specific location or headline or URL, projects or skill sets. We can call out current companies or current titles, past titles, schools they've attended, majors, degrees. Grad year is a really fantastic operator to use, especially if you're searching for early in career or undergrad candidates. And then we can also filter out by things like languages and certifications. And to give you an idea of how these exactly help refine your searches, let's say we were looking for something like a software engineer, right? We can come in here and I can just type it very generically, and I'm just going to type out the title of software engineer. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to give me a huge candidate return, right? Over 6 million candidates. This is still a global candidate view. But some of these candidates may actually have the title of software engineer, but some of them may not. What we're doing here is when we're writing a title like this in the keyword box, I'm essentially telling SeekOut, show me any candidate profiles that have the word software and the word engineer anywhere in that profile. Doesn't necessarily have to be their title, doesn't even necessarily have to be together. So this is a very broad and generic search, and it's not going to add that specificity that you may want if you're actually wanting to see folks that have the title of software engineer. So referring back to some of these field-based operators, the better way to write it instead would be to use this operator cur_title. And we're going to see exactly what the difference is here when we write it this way instead. So I'm going to do cur_title, put my parentheses, and then I'm going to put quotations, because whenever you have something like this, a title that has more than one word in it, you want to make sure to put those in quotations so that SeekOut knows that we want to see these two words right next to each other the exact same way we're typing them here. So in the previous search, we just typed out software engineer. We had a little over 6.1 million candidates, but now writing it like this, I'm going to hit enter. And now you can see what that huge disparity looks like. So now we're indexing a little over 750,000 candidates, but now these are all candidates that actually have some iteration of software engineer in their actual title. So like I said, definitely recommend leveraging some of those field-based operators because they are going to add so much specificity to your search and help refine those even further. Now, at the very bottom of that article that covers those field-based operators, we also have an additional article here that's going to cover those advanced Boolean operators you can use as well. Now, what I love about this is we give you an overview of each different operator, and then we also provide some examples of how you would write these into a Boolean string. So this is going to cover the use of things like proximity searches, wildcard searches, and fuzzy searches. We also give you some great insight into how to write preferred or nice to have skill sets into your Boolean string, as well as how best to use the boosting operator, which is a really fantastic one to use, especially if you want to kind of manipulate the order in which candidates are presented to you. And we're going to walk through some examples of how we can use these in a couple of different searches here. But like I said, for our Boolean aficionados, definitely check out these two articles. They are just going to make you all the more deadly with your Boolean searches. But for anybody on the call that is not comfortable using Boolean or hasn't had that much exposure to it, no need to worry because you can use the pre-built and power filters that we have here on the left-hand side. So we have location filters broken out by country, by city, and by state, diversity tags, which we'll talk about here in just a bit. And then we also have these pre-built filters for things like calling out the current title or the current company, as well as years of experience, schools, skill sets, schools they've attended, degrees, majors. We even have a filter to specify if candidates are likely open to new positions. And the main idea behind this is ease of access. So if you do not feel comfortable writing out that complex Boolean string, you don't have to. You can use these pre-built filters for one-click access to get to the same great talent pool that way. So kind of meets you wherever you're at in terms of how you like to search for your talent. Now, in addition to these pre-built filters, we also have these power filters available for you to use. And this is another great way to kick off a search here within the direct search is to start with one of these. Now, essentially what a power filter is, it is a pre-built Boolean string that's consisting of specific skills, roles, and other qualifiers. And we have them across a wide variety of categories. So when you go into that more power filters option, this is going to show you all of the power filters you can use and enable as part of your search. Now we have a quick search bar here at the top, so you can search for a specific filter, or you can browse through the different tabs we have here on the left and see what's going to make the most sense for you. Under general is where we're going to house some of our authorization power filters for things like US work authorization and security clearances. We have some education filters for STEM graduates, graduates of top universities or liberal arts colleges, as well as computer science grads who went to one of the top 200 colleges in the US. We also have some diversity power filters broken out here, so we can easily filter out by HBCU graduates, graduates of Hispanic serving institutions, members of Native American or Asian American organizations. Software development is an area that we're very strong in here as well. So in these power filters, we have them broken out across front-end positions, server and cloud, data science and machine learning, robotics, app development, mobile finance systems, DevOps, security, the list goes on and on. We also have a list of companies power filters broken out here. So we're easily able to filter out by candidates that are currently working for, let's say, Fortune 500 companies or companies with recent layoffs. We can target startups depending on what stage they're currently in. And then we have power filters broken out across a couple of different verticals here. So we can look at technology companies, retail, healthcare, finance and consulting, defense and aerospace, engineering, and so forth. Now, as a side note, you can use a combination of power filters together with one another. So we can actually combine 5 power filters as part of any search we want to run. And as another side note here, we are also able to create custom power filters for your team as well. So if there's anything that your team likes to use as a repeatable search, rather than copying and pasting that Boolean string every time or writing it out and applying different filters, let us know. And we're happy to work with you to create that as a custom power filter so that your team can use that for one-click access. To give you an example of some recent power filters I helped other clients create, I actually just had a client ask me to create a power filter for them that was going to pull in any candidate that held the title of solutions architect, but then also worked for one out of, I think it was 15 or 20 target companies that they had a lot of success sourcing from. So that was a power filter I was able to create for their team. So now that team has one-click access to pull up a really great and significant talent pool without having to do any of that work of plugging in filters or Boolean strings or keywords. They're just able to do that with one click. So if that's something that would be beneficial for your team, reach out and let us know because we're happy to work with you to create that for its custom power filter as well. Now, to give you an idea of how these power filters work exactly, we'll use an example here for full stack expertise. Now, if anybody on the call has ever had to source for a full stack engineer or developer, probably noticed there's not a lot of candidates out there that actually hold that title. It is much more of their skill set and expertise that goes into that. not necessarily just the title. So if I was doing a strict title search to say, show me full stack engineers or developers, I'm going to miss out on a lot of other really qualified candidates. And the flip side to that is that if I were to try to build out a Boolean string that was going to pull in everything that goes into having that full stack expertise, it's going to be pretty time consuming. So with this, we're able to leverage SeekOut full stack power filter here for one-click access, and we're going to let SeekOut take some of that workload off of our shoulders. So I'm quickly going to apply that power filter. We can see we're now indexing 1.9 million candidates, but this is still a global candidate view. So let's say I want to only look at the candidates that are in the US. Check that off here. And now we're indexing about 1.6 million candidates. Now, some of these candidates may not be listed as full stack engineers or developers, but right here within these badges in their profile, click on those and we're going to show you exactly why our search is bringing them in based on some of their key matches, their experience, education, and skill sets as it relates to full stack expertise. All right, now let's take this search a little bit further. Let's talk a little bit about our diversity tags here as well. So as I mentioned, SeekOut is really great at pulling diverse and underrepresented talent very quickly. The methodology behind how we classify candidates' diversity here is a combination of a bunch of factors that include things like name matching, associations with different colleges or sororities, professional groups, country of origin, and the like. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking those factors and a few others into an algorithm to make a very strong inference on their diversity classification to better help you find those candidates quickly. So we've applied a power filter here to show us candidates that have that full stack expertise. Now let's say I only want to look at the female candidate population within that. I can check that tag. We're going to see our index refresh now a little over 322,000 candidates all in the US. But now I'm telling SeekOut, show me the female candidate population in the US that has full stack expertise. We can also use a combination of these diversity tags together with one another. So I want to take this now a step further and say, show me the female Hispanic candidates. I can check that tag as well. And whenever you're using more than one diversity tag, you're going to see this toggle pop up that's showing you candidates with both tags. So by default, when we're using more than one, SeekOut is going to interpret that as an and operator. So I'm saying, show me candidates that are female and Hispanic that have that full stack expertise. Now, we can look at any one of these candidates and we know that they have not raised their hand or checked a box or done anything to identify themselves as either female or Hispanic. So what we're doing here is we're looking at a bunch of factors and data points from their profile, and we're making a strong inference based on that. So it is inferred diversity as a reminder. So occasionally there may be some occasions where we do get false positives. Maybe some of these candidates are not female based on their profile pictures, or maybe it doesn't look like they would fall into a Hispanic category. If you do come across any false positives like that, you actually do have the ability to report those to us in real time. Now you're going to notice this little messaging icon to the far right of every candidate profile. And if you click on that, that's going to bring up a little sub menu where you can tell us what was incorrect with the profile. Was it contact information? Was it an outdated or duplicate? Or were there any other sort of mismatch here, such as diversity, for example? Now, it definitely shouldn't be the norm that you see those false positives, but like I said, because it is an algorithm, that will happen on occasion, but we tend to see statistically about a 90% accuracy rating with the power filters and diversity classifications that we're applying here within SeekOut. All right, now, I always recommend, like I said, you're not just restricted to only doing a Boolean search or only leveraging the pre-built power filters here. I think some of the best and most successful searches come from a combination of the two. So we have a power filter for full stack expertise. We're looking at folks in the US. We've applied some diversity tags here to show us the female and Hispanic candidate population. Now let's say I also want to add in maybe some years of experience. Maybe I only want to see the folks that have a minimum of 5 years. I can use this filter here to adjust that slider, and we're going to see that index start to refresh further and further. So as you can see, I mean, I think it's always helpful to use a combination of the two in searches like this. Now, similar to what we did before, I think the first example I showed everybody was running an insights report. This is an example. So I'm running a direct search here. I put in some requirements. I got about 14,000 candidates I'm looking at. But now let's say I want to get some of that great talent mapping data about these 14,000 candidates. You have the People Insights tab right up here that we can click on, and it's going to give us all that same great talent mapping data in aggregate about these candidates that we're currently pulling in our search. So we see those power filters they're associated to. We see the locations they're currently in, the current companies, and so forth. So as we did in the previous example, let's now say I just want to look at the candidates that are currently working at Apple, for example, that fall within our search requirements. I can click on that and jump right back into that candidate profile view. And now I've shortlisted my candidate pool down from 14,000 candidates, which, let's be realistic, that's a little unrealistic to manage to now I'm only pulling in 102 candidates with just a couple of clicks, and I didn't even put in any kind of Boolean string here. So like I said, definitely, and 102 candidates, that's obviously going to be a lot more manageable to parse through. So different ways that we can leverage the data here using a combination of those power filters, pre-built filters, as well as leveraging some Boolean strings here as well. And it's always going to show you here on the left-hand side, any of those filters we applied within Insights, we're going to see those applied here as well. So now as we come down to the current company filter, we can see that we have this checked off to Apple. All right, now let me take that off. We'll go back to the 14,000 candidates because I want to show you some other great ways that you can search here, leveraging some of those advanced Boolean operators as well. All right, so as I mentioned, we give you that overview, preferred, nice to have skill sets. And I'm going to show you some examples of how to write in a preferred skill set, as well as how best to use the boosting operator. Now, preferred skill sets, that is not something that we have a filter for. So if you do want to do a search and call out any nice to have skill sets, that's going to have to be done in a Boolean string. So let's say, for example, we want to call out some requirements here. Let's say I'm working with a hiring manager that says, hey, Aaron, find me some full stack candidates that are female and Hispanic. We only want to look in the United States, but we have some target companies we want you to find these folks from. Let's say we only want to look at folks from Microsoft, Amazon, Google, or Facebook, right? That's something we can come in and type in here into our keyword box, or you can also leverage that current company filter to apply those companies as well. But the thing you're not going to be able to do with that filter is to specify preference or nice to have. So let's say I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say, okay, now show me the candidates that are currently working. And I'm going to write that with that field-based operator, say cur_company, colon, and then we're going to call out those target companies we'd like to look at. So let's say Microsoft or Amazon or Google or Facebook, right? Those are the target companies my manager wants to see these candidates from. Type that in. Now we're indexing about 659 candidates. But let's say my hiring manager tells me, hey, look, we'd love to see candidates from any one of these companies. But if you find the candidates that are coming from Microsoft, those are the folks we want to look at first, right? So that is a preference. That is a preferred requirement, is that we're looking at the candidates that are coming from Microsoft. Now, the way I can use that boosting operator is we're going to use that little caret symbol, which is going to look like this. And then we can boost it to a numerical value. Let's say if I wanted to now boost this to 100. So I'm going to write it Microsoft. Right after that, I'm going to put that boosting caret and I'm going to put 100. Now pay attention to the index we have here, 659 candidates, but look at the candidate profiles that we have here just right on face value. So here I see Facebook, Facebook. God, we got a lot of folks here at Facebook. So now I'm essentially telling SeekOut, anybody that is currently working at Microsoft, push those to the very top of my list. So when I put in that operator like that, hit enter, we're still indexing 659 candidates, but now you can see I just manipulated the order in which the candidates are being presented to me here. So now these profiles, anybody that's currently at Microsoft, these should be at the very top of my list now. So like I said, very, very helpful operator to use that's going to help manipulate the order in which the candidates are shown to you. Now let's also talk about some of those preferred or nice to have skill sets. Let's say my manager reaches out and say, hey, look, if they have Python or Kotlin experience, that's going to be a huge plus, but not a requirement for us. So we can also write that into well, we have to write it into a Boolean string because we can't put preferred skill sets into a filter. So now I'm going to say, and let's do skills : operator. And then we're going to say, sorry, I can't spell today, Python or Kotlin. Now, where I'm going to turn this into a preferred statement is I'm going to put or true : y. So adding that or true : y statement after my requirements here is essentially telling SeekOut if they have that Kotlin or Python experience, nice to have, but it's not a hard requirement for us. And you can see we still have the same amount of candidates indexed here. And it's going to show in those key matches exactly where those requirements are popping up in their profile or what relevant experience they have to what we're calling out. And these advanced operators, the preferred skill sets, the boosting operator, they can be used against any query that you're running here. So it's not just exclusive to the current companies or preferred skill sets. We can apply that to anything. So if we wanted to say, you know, if they work for one of these target companies, and if we added that or true : y statement to it, that's going to say if they work there, great, not a hard requirement. So this can be applied to any kind of search you're running here. All right. Now, I think I'll try to kind of follow a workflow. I think that I feel like would be ideal from this point is once you have a decent amount of candidates that you have indexed and you're ready to start parsing through those profiles, we can obviously do it right here from the direct search page. But I think the best way to go about doing that is to go ahead and put these folks into a project. Now, you're going to see that add to project button next to every candidate profile here in SeekOut. So we can cherry pick and just target specific candidates we want to pursue. But this is something we can do in bulk as well. If I come up to the very top, I can add my entire page into a project. And when you click on that, it's going to give you a list of projects that you already have created, as well as give you the ability to create a brand new one here. So let's say we're going to call this one Target Company Full Stack Candidates. There we go. I create. Now, all 10 of these candidates are going to be thrown into that project for us. As a side note, we only show you 10 results per page when you're on this direct search page, but you can increase that if you like. So scrolling all the way down to the very, very bottom here, you'll see this button in the bottom right-hand corner. If you click on that, that's going to show you can increase the search results by 25 all the way up to 100 if you like. Now, every project you create here in SeekOut, they're all going to be housed right here in our projects tab. So we'll click on that. This is where we're going to get a full overview of all the projects we've ever created. So I'm going to go into the one we just did, and this is where we get to do some really cool things in terms of sharing, annotating our projects. Now, let's say I want to share this project with maybe my colleagues or my hiring leader to get some feedback before I actually start reaching out to them. You have this share project button in the top right-hand corner. You click on that, you have a couple of options here. So we can share with all SeekOut users in the organization. Now, this is going to be if you want to share your project with anybody else on your team that also has a SeekOut license, this is the option to go with. And then you can set what permissions you want them to have. Do you want them just to view the candidates? Do you want them to be able to add comments? Or do you want to give editing permissions? Now, editing permissions does give somebody full access to add or delete candidates from your project at their discretion. So definitely be aware of that. But let's say in another scenario, I want to share this project with a hiring manager I'm working with, and maybe that hiring manager does not have a SeekOut license. I can still share the project with them with the option to share with link. We'll check that off. Again, we'll set what permissions we want to have. Now, as a side note, if the manager does not already have a SeekOut license, we cannot give them editing permissions, but we can still give them the option to view and comment. Once we have that set, all I have to do is copy this link, send it to my manager in an email or in a messaging tool, whatever works for you. Once they get it, they will be asked to create a username and password so they can log in. And once they log in, they're now going to have the same view into the curated list of candidates the exact same way we see them here. And that does come at no additional cost. So there are no fees associated with sharing a project with a manager that does not have a SeekOut license. Now, if I'm sharing a technical project with my manager and any of these candidates have that relevant GitHub information, my manager is also going to have this visibility to be able to go into those source material links, to be able to look at their GitHub profile and get a better sense of the candidate's work there as well. It's another really awesome feature. Now, to the point of sharing a project, let's say I want to share this project with my hiring manager, but I'd like to help reduce any unconscious bias that might come about as they're looking at my candidates. Maybe I do not want my manager to see the profile picture or have access to see the candidate's contact information. We have a feature called blind hiring mode that's meant to do just that. So when you come to that share project button, you'll see that toggle right down here at the bottom to share with blind hiring mode enabled. And you're going to see that by default, we're going to redact the candidate name, the photo, as well as the contact info. But you can also choose to redact things like the schools they've attended, links to any social profiles, as well as any relevant salary data if it's available for those candidates. And to give you an idea of what that looks like, so if I'm sharing this with my manager with blind hiring mode enabled, they're going to see it like this. It's going to redact the name, the photo, it's going to replace it with this picture of a cat. And it's also going to redact any contact information if I had already pulled it for them. So the only thing my manager is going to see here is the candidate's title, their experience, education, and skill sets. So like I said, really great feature to help leverage, to help avoid any of that unconscious bias. Here's a good example. Here's a candidate I had pulled contact information for. So when I'm sharing with blind hiring mode, it's going to look like this. So it'll redact that information here as well. All right, now let's say I got some feedback from a manager that said, Aaron, these candidates look great. Let's talk to them. Let's get them scheduled for some phone interviews. For me, this is where I would go in and start to use those contact credits to get access to their email and phone numbers. So we can, again, just target specific candidates. Every profile has the option to get email and get their phone, but I can also do this in bulk as well if I want to. So if I want to do it for all 10, I can come up to the top, select all. I'm going to get email for all 10, and then I'm going to get phone for all 10. Now, the way it works with those 500 contact credits is you are going to use 1 credit to get access to the candidate's email addresses and 1 credit to get access to their phone numbers, regardless of how many emails or numbers come back for them. So a good rule of thumb to remember is the maximum amount of contact credits you can use on any single candidate is going to be 2. So to get emails and phone numbers for all 10 of these candidates, I'm going to end up using 20 credits in total. And this is also a good example too, as I mentioned before, when you're pulling candidates' contact information, if they do have any related social media profiles linked to them, that information is going to populate in this metadata right down here. So you can see with Carmen, once I got that information, I also now have the ability to go into the Twitter account, Foursquare, other social links, Instagram, and so forth, so that I can get a better sense of the candidates I'm looking at and potentially have in consideration to present to my manager. All right, now another good example I want to call out, I saw the first example we had here, it showed no numbers found. Now, if you do come across instances like this where there's no email or no phone numbers found, just know that those contact credits will be reimbursed back to you. And typically that's done automatically within about 2 to 3 hours. Now, as a quick note on the contact information, this is not information that is coming from the candidate's LinkedIn public accounts. SeekOut does work with a handful of contact information providers. And when you are going to get their email or get their phone, that is actually sending a ping directly to those providers, and they're scouring the web for any relevant contact information that's been associated to these candidates at some point in time. So because of the nature of the data here, because it is self-reported, there may be occasions that an email bounces or a phone number is no longer valid. Like I said, if you do come across those instances, definitely report those to us here. But typically what we see with the contact information is we tend to see at least a 70% accuracy rating with the contact info that we have provided here within SeekOut. So we do allow a small margin for some contact information to no longer be valid, but understand that it is all self-reported data, and that is coming from contact information providers that we work with. So that is how we're able to pull that information for you here within SeekOut. Now that's how you're going to use those 500 contact credits. Let's also talk a little bit about how you're going to use those 5,000 export credits. Now SeekOut does have the ability to set up a one-way integration with your ATS or CRM tool at no additional cost. So that's already included with the cost of the licensing you have today. If your organization has opted to enable that and set that up, you would have the ability to come into your projects. You can select what candidates you want to export. And then when you come to this export button, you would have the ability to see export directly to your ATS or CRM right here from SeekOut. Now, we've partnered and set up integrations with a lot of really well-known ATS and CRM tools, Greenhouse, Lever, Smart Recruiters, Beamery, and Gem, telemetry, and so forth. And when you leverage this export feature, you're actually able to map them to specific requisition IDs that you have set up, or you can also upload them as prospects as well. Now, if your organization has not set up that one-way integration, you still have another workaround to be able to export these candidates into a CSV file that you can then use to upload into your ATS or CRM. So same thing, you'll come to this export button once you select the candidates to export, and right down here at the bottom, you have the option to export to spreadsheet. Now, depending on how many candidates we're exporting, that is how many of those 5,000 export credits we're going to use. So I'm about to use 10 of my 4,971 export credits. Click that, and then it's going to give you this new window that's going to show you a drop-down menu that's going to have a couple of different export formats depending on the tool that you're currently using. Now, if you do not see your ATS or CRM tool within this list, reach out and let us know, because we can build out a custom export format for you that's going to pull in those specific fields and columns that you need to easily be able to upload them into your tool. Now, to give you an idea of kind of what the SeekOut standard format looks like here, go ahead and pull it up in Excel online. It's going to parse out all the relevant candidate information. So first name, last name, LinkedIn URL. It's going to pull their contact information if we had already pulled it for them. So if you do want that contact info available here, definitely want to make sure that you retrieve that before exporting. And then it's going to parse out all the other relevant contact information about these candidates. So location, current company, work history, education history, and so forth. Most importantly to call out here, it is going to show SeekOut as the source for these candidates. So if your organization and your leadership is tracking ROI in terms of how many candidates are coming out of SeekOut, that's going to be a great way to showcase and highlight that, at least until your organization decides to set up that one-way ATS or CRM integration here. Now, another really helpful feature that I like to show off here within the projects is you actually have the ability to upload candidate profiles here into your SeekOut projects. Now, a good use case for this that another user recently shared with me was that she was keeping track of every candidate in her LinkedIn recruiter projects that had not responded to her emails. And then once a week, what she's doing is she's exporting those candidates from her LinkedIn project into a CSV file, and then uploading that CSV right here into SeekOut and bringing those candidate profiles right here into her project. Now, the benefit of doing that is now, rather than just relying on LinkedIn InMails as a means to talk to these candidates, she's now able to pull them in here in SeekOut and get their direct email and get their direct phone numbers. So it's covering more bases and increasing the likelihood that you're going to be able to get in touch with some of these candidates. So definitely a great resource to leverage here as well. Now, as your projects are growing, as you are adding more candidates and doing that outreach, we give you some additional customization options here within the project to help keep things a little bit more organized. Every candidate profile in your project is now going to have this status option. So you can click on that and it's going to bring up some preloaded options here. We can set specific statuses just so we can kind of keep track of where these candidates are in our particular workflow. So maybe I want to say Karen has been screened, or I haven't contacted her yet. Every profile also has this more button here within the projects. If you click on that, you can also add things like tags, notes, and comments. Now, I'm a big advocate for leveraging the tag functionality here. This is also going to give you some preloaded options. So we have things like do not contact, ignore, priority, or rockstar. And why I'm a big advocate for this is, let's say we're all on the same team here, right? I'm doing a search. I've got Karen here in my project, and I'm tagging her as do not contact. Now, let's say if anybody else on my team that also has that SeekOut license is doing a separate search on their own, and they come across Karen's profile, they're going to see the tag do not contact, and they're also going to see that she is already part of somebody's project labeled target company full stack candidates. So it helps kind of mitigate against those scenarios where multiple users on your team might all be reaching out to the exact same candidates. So definitely a great resource to leverage here as well. Now, in the notes section here, we can add private notes. This is just for your own visibility, so you help keep track of where these candidates are. So maybe if I want to leave a note that says, hey, I left a voicemail for Karen on Tuesday, I'm going to call her back again on Friday. Then if I am sharing this project with a hiring manager or a colleague, I can add shared comments. So maybe I want to let my hiring manager know, hey, I spoke to Karen today, great candidate, but we should probably move fast because she does have 2 other interviews scheduled next week. When I save that comment, my hiring manager is going to get a notification saying the new comment has been added to the project that's being shared with them. Then they are able to come in here and they can add their comment on top of that. So maybe my manager comes back and says, great, here's my availability for the week. Let me know what's going to work for Karen. So it adds a really great layer of collaboration as you're building out these projects and as you are sharing and annotating them as well. Very, very helpful feature. All right, now I know we're almost coming up on time here, but one other quick functionality and feature that I want to show the team is the use of our cloning functionality. Now, good use case for this is, let's say we've working on a backfill, or maybe we've sourced a candidate here within SeekOut that was a really great fit. Maybe they got all the way to an offer extend, but they came back and declined it for whatever reason. But they were still a great candidate, and we'd like to find candidates with similar profiles. I'm going to do a quick search here just for solutions architect to show you how this works. Now, let's say John here, he declined our offer, but I want to find candidate profiles that are just like his. I can pull up his profile here in SeekOut, and I'm going to clone him. Now, what happens when you clone a candidate is a project is automatically created for you. So you can see here clones of John Pernixi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Probably not. But now this is a project that's housed right here in my projects tab. Now, what else is happening is SeekOut's AI is looking at John's profile, and we're looking at a couple of factors like his title, his location, and some of his key characteristics. Based on that data, we're going to make recommendations for candidates with very similar profiles. You're going to see those recommendations here on the right-hand side. Now, any of these candidates that look good to us on face value, we can go ahead and accept them, and then they're automatically added into that project for us. We can always jump back into our projects tab and start to review their profiles there. Now, we also give you the ability to reject candidates that are not a fit. If you reject a candidate, we're going to ask why. Was it their title, the company they work for, location, skill set, or tenure? Let's just say for Evan here, I'm going to put that it is the company that he works for. Maybe I just know something about CenturyLink that's not going to be a good culture fit for what I'm looking for. I'm going to select company as a rejection reason here. And as you start to reject candidates and put those rejection reasons, SeekOut's AI learns from those rejections. And when I get down to the bottom of my list and I ask to show me more candidate recommendations, the AI now knows not to show me any other candidates that also work for CenturyLink. Same thing would be applied for any of my rejection reasons here as well. Now, we can still customize some of the data that the AI is pulling from John's profile here. So obviously we can see he's located in the Arlington, Virginia area. Maybe I just want similar candidates, but instead I want to look in the Seattle, Washington area. I can clear out the location. I'll put Seattle, hit apply. Now, again, the AI is still looking for similar profiles to John, but we're just changing the source location here. And this does kind of tie back to what I mentioned at the top of the call, is that we're not restricted to one way of searching for talent. We have a variety of avenues to explore. We can run some insights reports to look at the total addressable market. We can jump in and start doing some direct searches with keywords and Boolean and power filters, or we can let SeekOut's AI do some of that sourcing for us by leveraging the cloning functionality here. Now, let's say there's some parts of John's profile that we don't need, or we need to add in some additional requirements. If we jump down to key characteristics here, we can hit that change button, and this actually gives you a behind the curtain view to see what the AI is actually pulling from his profile. So anything here that's relevant that would be, let's say for job titles, good for potential candidates to have, this is our opportunity to add those in. We can call out the top 3 must-have skill sets for the role. And then we can also customize things like the preferred skill sets and years of experience. So maybe I want candidates that are a little more junior, maybe only 5 years. You have some additional filters here to call out things like exclusions that you don't want to see with those recommended candidates. We can apply diversity tags to them, as well as specify education requirements. Now, once we plug in that data, we can hit next. Now the AI is going to take any of the changes we just made there and apply those to the next round of recommended candidates. So you can still customize some of the data that we're searching for. Another great resource to leverage. And this is also helpful too to find some additional candidates that you might not have otherwise come across in a direct search. So definitely a very helpful feature to leverage.